After 10,000 years, I'm making another video. I tried a little harder in the Duelist Cup this time. I actually sat down for like 8 hours on Friday and played for like 8 hours straight, basically. And I was able to get 954s. So that's, top 1,000. I feel like for the amount of time I put in, I'm pretty happy where I was able to get to. I played a bit after that. I would be surprised if I played more than 16 hours in total. But like 29,500 points for the time I put in with the deck I put in, I'm pretty happy. I played Sky Striker. I actually do think if I was to like take the weekend off and like play the entire weekend, I could have. Not only that, doing a little prep too would have helped a lot too. I didn't really prepare going in. The deck list started off different from this. Super Poly came in as I kept playing. I had one bell in here because I was kind of basing it off of the list that Joshua Schmidt had taken to that one regional, I think it was, or was that a YCS? I don't remember. Anyways, where he's playing 3 Ash and a Bell. They were playing over 40, and originally I was playing way over 40. I had a list that was just like way over 40, and I was just like, okay, these are all the cards I want to play. And I basically cut it down. I wasn't playing Jamming Waves. I wasn't playing Super Poly at first. But basically, these were tweaks I made it because I felt like the deck wasn't good enough going second. And Super Poly was frequently like the card where I was like, okay, I need like an opportunity to break in here. And against like Mitsurugi being like, oh, if I had a card where I could just get the monsters off of board for a second, so it's at least like, so I can actually have a moment of peace from Futsu in particular is just hard for this deck to deal with, in my opinion, because it just makes them plus too much while you're playing. Sometimes you can do Lemnis Gate stuff in order for it to like kind of not matter, and hypothetically if they get all of their searches out of the way, kind of like how you do a Draco kill with the spell traps, you can win games by running them out of resources, but that's not trivial by any means. Regardless, I ended up refining the deck list, cutting cards out. I was playing 3 Pot of Desires at first, and that's one of the things that changed, but I'm just going to talk about the list real quick in order that the cards appear, in my opinion on them in this deck, as somebody who did, like, okay in the Duelist Cup. So we start with Maxi. We are playing Crossout Designator, and this is a huge reason Ash and Maxi are in this deck list. I generally don't like them. I think hand traps are very questionable. Maxi in particular doesn't usually resolve. However, the one thing to be said for Maxi, even if you aren't playing like Crossout or anything like that, is that Maxi usually rips cards that you kind of desperately need your opponent to not have. Like, they're going to Ash it, they're going to Called by it, and when you're going second, that's actually really big for you. To be able to have your opponent have burned an Ash already. Although if they have 2, then it feels bad. Same with Called by the Grave. Getting Ray or 0 Called by is very difficult to overcome. Ash is unfortunately just really good. Basically, if you're going second, you can use it as a hand trap. If you have like a bad hand and you're like, I need my opponent to have like nothing, you can just Ash the first thing and cross your fingers. Sometimes your opponent only has one play and Ash stops it. But that's not why it's here. A big reason why it's here is Crossout Designator. Because Ash is one of the cards that's very difficult for you to play through. You could, for the same reason, include Droll in this deck, but I don't think Droll is popular enough, and the fact that Droll is at 2, I just don't think it's worth it to play Droll, and it's just not strong enough like Ash's. Because the thing I usually did when I was playing Ash is either Ash an opponent's bridge to a second engine. So if they're playing like Yami Mitsurugi or Silphicore Yami or something, you can either prevent them from getting the quick play if they like normal summon Cupsy, which is like a huge recursion thing that makes them a lot more difficult to deal with, or like Ash the what is it, the Snatchy Yummy, the Synchro, Snatchy, what's it called, the Cupsy one that searches 2 and discards 1, Cupsy Yummy Way. So being able to Ash this if they make it with like a level 1 and Link 1 can keep them off of the Yummy engine, which can be extremely relevant. So usually the idea with Ash was trying to do that. A big reason I also liked Ash was a lot of times you're able to interact with decks really favorably with your normal inboard. Ash as a card in hand can Ash Saji's Grave Effect, which I did a number of times. Being able to stop critical pushes against Mitsurugi, I found to be very relevant. I don't know if I would say it's mandatory, but I definitely noticed when I drew Ash and I had a board and my opponent had Mitsurugi insert the blank here, and I'd stop their other plays with like Widow Anchor and stuff, and then they'd try to follow up with Mitsurugi. Where Ash was frequently a card that was like, could not have been anything else. Playing 3 Ray, it's Ray. Yeah, that's your good normal summon. This is your best board breaker, usually. Sometimes against Yummy boards, it's better to draw Rose, because then you'll put a Rose in graveyard for free. And that allows you to run over the Sprite Elf that they have in the extra monster zone, and then Rose summons herself, and then you can negate one of the extra deck Yummies, the Synchros that they have on field, and run over another one. Generally just really strong, and it doesn't give Herald a good negate option either, because you'll make Hayate, you'll activate Hayate effect and damage step to send something presumably, and then if they do negate, like Rose is pretty solid. Just don't send Ray when you do that Hayate send if they don't negate it, because Ray will be banished because of the Herald of the Arclight. Alternatively, you can like normal summon a Ray, run over Arclight, activate effect, but those games tend to get messy. You are favored in them, in my experience, if you play it really well, but you do have to like play it well, or else the Yummy player is going to be doing very well. I'm playing 2 Rows. I started with 2 Rows because of playing 3 Pot of Desires, and I never cut it because I felt like I needed the consistency. Like, not even like, oh, what if I Desires Banish? Because I think if it was just for the Desires Banish, I think you'd only play 1 Rose. But I just found I consistently enough was like, I want another name. I didn't do math for this one, so I don't know if that was anecdotal. But I have all the starters in here because I felt like I needed names. Specifically, it's Rose, and you might be asking why not Cyanos? Because Cyanos is a way better starter than Rose is, obviously. Because you'll normal summon, special summon Rose from deck, you'll make Camellia, it'll get you engaged. But basically the idea was I didn't want to play cards that were extra weak to Maxi and Fulos and stuff, because I think one of the advantages of this deck is only giving like 1 draw to those cards. And if you play Cyanos, that kind of requires you to give 2 draws, and you're ending on Camellia is like, okay, sometimes, but it's not great. 3 Upset Goblin, very straightforward. Droll's at 2. Droll's pretty popular, but I don't think Droll was popular enough to be like, we're not going to like deck build around Droll. So 3 Upstart Goblin, put the spell in Grave for free. Your opponent gets 1,000 LP, that doesn't really matter. Rhoda searches Ray, sometimes it can search Rose. We're playing 1 Pot of Desires. Let me tell you my theory on this, my personal theory, which is Pot of Desires is a really good card. Why? It puts a spell in Grave, and it draws you 2 cards. Here's the problem. I have other versions. This will make sense in a moment. I have other versions of Upstart Goblin, like Into the Void, that are at 3 in this game. So there's Into the Void, and there's like Chicken Game, and these are Upstart Goblin but worse, right? But they don't have a downside that like kills your grind game or has a potential to kill your grind game. Now, why am I mentioning this? This is important because this is my theory behind playing Pot of Desires. The first Pot of Desires is good. If you ever draw a second Pot of Desires, your Pot of Desires basically turn into Upstart Goblin, because activating the second Pot of Desires is like basically impossible. If you play the field spell, this can mitigate that issue. But in my opinion, the first Pot of Desires is the only good one, and any subsequent one you draw is a dead card in hand that is at best a send for Droplet, or a send for Linkage, or a target for the field spell, or multi-roll or something. And it's just not good enough. In my opinion, the second and third copies specifically. If you banish them off of the first one, that's fantastic. That's perfect. That's what you want. But sometimes you're just going to draw it. You draw a bunch of cards in this deck, and drawing another Pot of Desires basically turns it into another Upstart Goblin, but an Upstart Goblin that had downside and has a hard once per turn on it. And, like, you can never activate the second one. Which is, sometimes you can hypothetically activate too, but banishing half of your deck is actually going to murder your grind game. And reasonably speaking, that's 24 cards out of your deck. You have 11 cards left, and that's assuming you didn't activate any upstarts or engage. You know, cards you're very likely to activate. So I don't like playing this card at 1, honestly, but playing it at 1, if it eats an Ash, that's good. If it eats a Droll, that's okay. But in my experience, the second and third Pot of Desires always felt awful. The first one I don't like, but you draw 2 cards, and it's just really good, and it's a spell engrave. So that was my opinion on it. That's why I'm playing exactly 1 of it. Because if you could activate the other copies later, without feeling like, oh my gosh, I've banished literally half my deck, my grind game's like probably decimated into the ground. I think that's important. Also, I had games where it banished all 3 Rays. This card did not like me. Going down to 1 Widow Anchor is a big deal. Losing both Limnus Gates is a big deal. Those are the big ones. That's about it. Everything else you need to banish in like an absurd number of duplicates in order for it to matter. But it could be that it's statistically correct to play 3. But in my experience, playing multiples of this felt like you were too likely to draw a dead card that you didn't want to draw. So I only wanted to play 1, so I could only ever draw 1. And playing the first one basically always feels solid. Playing the second and playing a second one seems like impossible. And in this version of the list, I'm not playing cards that fix that problem. We're playing 3 Engage. It's Engage. Search. Hopefully draw. Great. 10 out of 10. Playing Jamming Waves. I wasn't playing this card at first. I ended up putting it in because I felt like I needed a card that helped me board break going second specifically, but I did not want to all in on going second. I just wanted to win more going second. Jamming Waves way overperformed. Frequently being able to hit an important back row from like the Canine board or the Yummy board, and then also hit a monster, was just really good. Sometimes you're playing against a trap deck, the Odeon deck, obviously, and you're able to get them out of their main sets of negates, and you're able to destroy back row and destroy a relevant monster on board. Do not try to destroy the face-up monster traps when the man with the mark is on the field, I believe. And the field spell, because the Apophis monsters can't be destroyed by battle or card effects while they control Temple of Kings, and this guy's on the field. Just keep that in mind. Jamming Waves just was really good for me, specifically, and it did what I wanted. I'm playing 1 talent. A huge reason for this card to be at 1 specifically, this does not have the Pot of Desires problem. I think this is a deck where you're not unlikely to make it to later turns, and having a second talent is actually good. Um, but I only had so much room in the deck, and like I said, I found jamming waves to be like more searchable, so it was a more consistent form of helping me go second, as opposed to triple Texas talent, which I would have to hard draw, which, while I would love to hard draw it, I honestly have a sneaking suspicion that I would prefer it to second Pot of Desires, but this way, I'm just guaranteed a card that's always live, and triple tactics talent isn't necessarily always live. The Odeon decks in particular are not going to activate hand traps that are monster effects, and but I think talents is, I think this card is very powerful. So I think it's kind of foolish to not play it. But I couldn't really find room to and reason to add more, so I didn't. So I'm just playing the one. But I think you could easily argue playing like all three of them. But I was trying to keep this down to a 40 card deck, keep it consistent as possible. That's I didn't feel like I was missing cards with this build, by the way. Not in the, like, I didn't feel like I cut cards that I needed. We have one MST. This is because we're playing Radiant Typhoon Vision. For me, I like playing MST even if it's not great in a matchup you're in, but I think MST is, like, fine. Also, it can be a check on Radiant Typhoon, where they'll have the MST set, but then if they ever threaten to MST negate, you can just hold your MST. And then, what are they going to do? If they activate the effect to negate, the trap is once per chain. Once per chain, when a Mystical Space Typhoon is activated, you can target one. So if they activate that effect, negate, you can then chain your own MST to destroy it. Usually, you don't really want to do that because it resets when it's hit by MST. If this card is destroyed by the effect of Mystical Space Typhoon, you can set this card. However, if you need to stop them from negating an important card, that can be good. In that vein, you have Linkage and Droplet as well to dodge that negating effect. You can destroy your own card if you want to, like, Zero Pop it or Azalea Pop the trap later. That can be relevant. And then we move on to Super Poly. This was the later addition to the deck. I ended up putting in Super Poly because, for starters, I just was not playing against Draco Tail. Against Yummy, I found a lot of the Yummy combo variants where they're playing like Sulfur Cord Yummy and Mitsurugi Yummy and stuff to be way more difficult to break the board. I think normally Yummy is not great into Sky Striker. I think Sky Striker's normally doing pretty fine. But when they have the variants, the board tends to be a lot more resilient and have a lot more follow-up and just generally be a lot more annoying, and we're not actually playing like real hand traps in this deck, except Maxi. I mean, Ash is a real hand trap, but like they have to have an absurdly bad hand for Ash to stop them. And Super Poly is a board breaker that can cut through stuff that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. Sometimes against some decks, you'll be able to like Super Poly pitch Rose, make something, run over the extra deck monster, and then summon back Rose, negate something, and then like make your Link plays and stuff in main phase 2. Super Poly did what I wanted it to do. I was happy with Super Poly. It felt adequate even in matchups where I don't think it was super powerful, but it was powerful enough. It always did what I needed it to. And sometimes you can use it to, like, pitch an otherwise dead card or something. Or, like, a hand trap that wasn't going to make a difference. But usually if you're playing for the long game, you want to hold, like, Ash Blossom for follow-up turns, which is the main hand trap, or Maxi, because they don't know that you don't play any other hand traps except Ash. You hypothetically had Call by the Grave. This card is when you're going first, even when you're going second, this card's freaking insane. You just hit Ash or sometimes Fua. I don't advise hitting a Fua with this card. That's a waste of it, frankly. But hitting Ash is very strong. Hitting Mitsurugi stuff is very strong. Hitting Fua, I think, is a very weak use of the card. Maybe if they double Fua. But usually I would advise like playing around Fua in different ways, which is basically summon 0 pass. I don't think your board is significantly weaker most of the time. Unless you have a very sad hand. But in that case, even then, it's going to be powerful because you're going to make it so that your hand that's like Ray Rose linkage, it gets you a lot more than it would be able to if you didn't have the Call by the Grave. This card should be banned. And I feel it just feels really powerful to draw going first or going second in my experience. And we'll turn that hand that like couldn't beat certain things into like, oh, I can actually beat all of that anyways. I'm playing Hornet Drones. Like I said, this is a consistency thing. I would cut second Rose before I cut this. Unless you're afraid of Pot of Desires banishing 2 Rose, I guess. But it was okay. Sometimes I search it for follow-up. It's fine. It's engine. It's technically a striker name. It makes 0 on turn 1. Widow Anchor, Heart and Soul of your Interruptions. Great. Love it. A Crossout Designator. This one was basically here for Ash and sometimes Maxi. If it's live, I suggest using it. You're not playing a lot of cards that other people are playing. Unless, like, the card you could... Like, if they Ash and it's, like, totally irrelevant. Like, if you have, like, a powerful hand where it's, like if you had something like Vision, Upstart, Engage, and you go Vision and they Ash it, like, who cares, right? Don't negate that Ash. Maybe they'll Maxi or something. In which case, you know, Upstart, Engage, win game. And then maybe they have a second Ash or something later. I actually had a game against Odeon where I cross-out designated a Pot of Desires, and I was able to win that game because it was like just a slow game where they were trying to accrue advantage, and I was trying to just get like a 4th name to play through freaking the 5th strike card. It was like the 3rd or 4th strike card, I forget. And I was actually able to win that game because I stopped them from drawing 2 cards, which would have been 2 traps that would have stopped me from playing. Because that's how Odeon do. Droplet, this is great. Widow Anchor plus Droplet plus Widow Anchor is insanely powerful. Do advise, it's great. If you've never Widow Anchor stolen Droplet, send the monster you stole to negate a second thing, and then Widow Anchored again, it feels great. Linkage, sometimes you'll have like Ray, Limniscate, or in draw phase, having Vision plus Linkage is really good to be able to play around Troll, so that your first action is Engage. There are just a lot of things Linkage does. Dodge an Imperm or a Veiler on like Kagari, or sometimes 0, depending on what you need to do. Will just be really powerful. Obviously, it's at 3. This helps OTK lines. OTK lines aren't really real, except on like turn 3 or 4 onwards, but it's not a big deal. I'm playing 2 Limniscate. There are 2 arguments for playing 2. Argument 1, Pot of Desires could banish 1, and you need at least 1 for grind game. I actually personally... Okay, here's the thing. I'm a little control gremlin, and I like playing 3, because if you play 3, you can banish 1 to get an extra interruption from your monsters and still have 2 in rotation, so you don't have to ever get anything other than engage back. The goal basically is I want to always get engage back and get more pluses, and that's why I like 3. Realistically, you can play 1 and it's fine. But I really like 2 because having 1 in the graveyard and then shuffling it back with the other one, but still also always having an option to banish it for the graveyard effect, but still have infinite grind game is still really good. It's also just the best discard from Radiant Typhoon Vision by far, because it has a good graveyard effect. this is just a really strong, fun card. The only thing I don't like about it, but I get why it's designed that way, is that it doesn't have the main monster zone restriction, but that's a design philosophy thing. In terms of power, card power, it makes perfect sense, and it fills in a gap in the deck where when you go first, you get to search Widow Anchor and search this and have 0 on board for a reasonable amount of disruption for a deck to have going first. And then Vision draws 2. Discards 1. It's good. There's got to be a setting, because there was a couple games I played on my phone, and I could not use Vision during the draw phase. Don't use this card during the draw phase if you have the option to. You want to play Run Roll. There's no reason to not play Run Roll. If you have 2 Super Polys, great news. The second Super Poly is a good discard. It itself is a solid discard. Usually MST isn't the best interruption if you're going first, but if you're going second, sometimes you need it in order to stop certain things. Like I've had it where a Yummy board will have too much follow-up if I don't destroy the second field spell, a Croaky, I think it's called, the one that pops and then like summons back a guy. MST is just a surprisingly solid card. And then destroying, like usually your goal for Draco Tail is like getting them out of spell traps and just not dying in the meantime. But I just didn't. This is not. But if it's not obvious by the fact I have Super Poly here and no targets for Draco Tail, I did not find Draco Tail to be a very relevant deck at all during this. I think they were higher up than I was the entire time. Say la vie. But I barely played any Draco Tail. The extra deck, we're only playing 2 Super Poly targets. I don't think you need more. I don't think you need to compromise your extra deck any more than this in order to make room for these. Garura is the better one, because you get to draw a card, that's it. Mud Dragon stops targeting. Sometimes you can just use this to make Camellia. It's bigger, so it can be important for walking over somebody in the extra monster zone, depending on how large they are. But usually it'll help with breaking a board you might not be able to break otherwise. Obviously, same thing here. Sometimes you have to summon them to the extra monster zone so that you are capable of activating your striker cards specifically. Obviously, that's going to be a case-to-case basis, what matters there. Same with attacker defense and stuff like that. The important part for those in Super Poly is that Super Poly is also settable in a card you can play going first and will still be an interruption. We have 2 Kagari. You can play 3. You can go out of your way to make room for a third one. But I don't have any cards that I'd be excited to cut. But there are cards you could cut. And that's assuming you want to keep Super Poly. You could play... you'll see we're playing 2-0. You could play 3 Kagari and 3-0 and not very much affect your extra deck. But the thing is, basically, there are 2 cards. There are just a couple cards, which I'll mention when I get to them, that are just not mandatory, and you can basically fill them in with whatever personally helps you play the most, rather than being worried about what other people tell you is optimal there. But in my opinion, the 3rd Kagari just doesn't matter most of the time. Even if you're only playing 1 Limitless Skate, I don't think it matters most of the time. That slot for the 3rd Kagari, I just don't think it matters. Shizuku. Play 1 of this. I really like playing 2 of it, but I think it's hard to make room, and it just doesn't actually matter most of the time. Also, sometimes people will Typhon back the Shizuku back, which I think is very funny. We have Hayate. Attack directly, send. You do need to play 1. This opens up lines of play that you don't have access to otherwise, which are very important when you're going second. And it can, like I said before, because of the Hayate Send and Rose interaction, sometimes it'll be really important for you to be able to make specific threats with Rose you wouldn't be able to make otherwise. And I've had it where people completely disrespect what the Hayate threatens with the Rose in deck, and like just totally get owned by it. Don't forget to send Engage when you're in a position where you're probably going to be able to get to Kagari later. I've legitimately thrown a game because I just had my brain shut off and I sent a stupid card instead of Engage. Kaina's a name. It's a different attribute. The Earth attribute. This effect never comes up. Not relevant. I have not kinded something in, like, years that's relevant. The last time I kinded something, it was, like, years ago. I kinded a, access code talker. And for that, honestly, the bad 0, engage 0, is better than kinda, because it negates the card, and they can't pop your back row. There are occasions where you just need a Sky Striker card with a different name and attribute, though. And kinda does that while also being able to be linked off still. This is one of the cards that could be third Kagari. Or it's second Shizuku. I really like playing second Shizuku. Amatsu, this is important. Most of the time, the reason is not the effect, but sometimes you will. I have had it against, like, a Lunalight player where they had the fusion on board. And basically, they needed to be able to activate the on-field effect in order to... where they, like, bounce and summon something. I forget what it is. What is it? This one. Yeah, they needed to target a Lunalight they control, return to the hand or extra deck, and they can special summon a monster from their hand. They needed to be able to do that in order to extend. And I think it was... that they had a Masquerade on the field that they needed to bounce, and they didn't have the option to do that because of my Amatsu, and if they attack, I can Amatsu pop it, so they can't use the effect still. So sometimes that's important. The attack pop effect can come up. I've had it against Odeon, where I had a weird situation where I was able to make 0 and Amatsu. And with that, I was able to get rid of a bunch of back row that I wasn't otherwise going to be able to get rid of. This is just a very solid card that's pretty flexible and lets you do a bunch of different stuff. And importantly, it's dark, which makes Azalea makeable. With just, like, it makes Azalea actually makeable in this deck. Crazy concept. Zeke... best against Odeon in particular, because you banish one of the continuous traps, and then it goes to graveyard when it comes back in the end phase, because it doesn't remember that it was special summoned by its own effect. It's very funny. But it also forces negate, because they're going to lose a continuous trap if they only have the one, which is nice. But also, playing Odeon against Odeon going second is very fake in general. I think Sky Striker is better at it than a lot of other decks, but there's no deck that's very real. That deck makes it very strong. There's a reason it has, like, what was it, 70-80% win rate on the summon of the fusion. When they go first and they get to do everything, it's like, yeah, here's a bunch of negates, good luck. And they were, all of them were, like, playing counter traps. They were playing, like, Solemns and the freaking when you would summon card. So, it was, meh. Azalea. The only thing to remember is you need to have 4 spells in graveyard before it sticks. A lot of the time, though, I found you'll use Azalea, and then they'll, like, negate the Azalea, and you'll be like, sweet, I burned against something, and I didn't have to figure out a way to, like, stay on Striker Engine. Camellia turns any 2 names into Striker. If you draw Ray Rose, this also foolishes. This gives you another way to access and engage, which can be nice. That's about it. It has an effect on field. Sometimes you can be in a situation where it makes sense to make Camellia and have it as an import piece. I would only ever suggest doing that if you have Droplet or Linkage or the like, because being able to send it and then being able to use it as removal on your opponent's turn is not terrible. It's not great because it's a link that they can use for whatever, but it can be okay. But usually you're just using it for the foolish effect. But remembering that it does have the tribute effect I've had that win me a game that I otherwise could not have won. SP Little Knight, this is just a flexible card. This could not be... Oh, the other thing is, like, sometimes you'll have, like, an Ash and a Widow Anchor, and you just get to steal their card, normal summon Ash, make Camellia, go off. Now you're back on Striker Engine. SP Little Knight, this is for banishes. Importantly, you'll notice in the main deck, there are a couple cards we're not playing. I'll actually talk about them shortly, but you don't have any banishes in the main deck, because we're not playing Short Cannon in the main deck. I just didn't think it was worth a slot. You could argue that it would be worth it to play it for Mitsurugi, but every card here was consistently pulling its weight, and Short Cannon was not. And I don't remember playing a single game where I was like, oh, I needed a Shark Cannon search in order to win that. I think there was one game where, I actually remember a bunch of games where I was playing the Pot of Desires, and I kept banishing the Shark. The only time I remember Shark Cannon being relevant was when it was banished off of Pot of Desires. After I'd gone down to no Shark Cannon, I don't think it ever came up again. So there's that. But this serves as a banish that you sometimes kind of actually need. 0, obviously the searches. It pops. Once again, you can play 3 if you want to, but you don't have to. SP Little Knight is probably the third most cuttable card from this extra deck, by the way. I didn't usually make it, but like usually when you make SP Little Knight, it went you in a circumstance you couldn't win otherwise. And sometimes it's like an interruption you want to keep because of the deck you're playing against, but yeah, 0, good card. Searches, pops. You like ending on it with Limnus Gate. I love it when you use 0, they go Called by the Grave, and you just Limnus Gate dodge to Called by the Grave. It's great. 0's a really powerful card. It's great. Azalea Temperance. This one, when you've stolen, I found this one to be mostly useful in games where you like steal with Widow Anchor and you want to clear your main monster zone, and you can like Azalea Temperance to steal another monster and make a second Widow Anchor live, at the cost of Limnus Gate and Grave. That comes up. It's good. I use Azalea Temperance, but usually Azalea Temperance can effectively be a different card. But I find it uniquely clears up your monster zones in a way that like Zeke and Azalea do not after you like 0 and activate a Widow Anchor. But that's not nearly as common as it sounds like it is. Given that that's your inboard most of the time. But usually, one of the advantages I think of this deck is that you can avoid using monster effects, and I generally try to hold off on activating 0 unless I think it's very mandatory. But yeah, if you're looking to cut cards, Kaina, easy cut. If you want to play like 3 Kagari, 3-0, I'd cut Kaina. Sometimes third 0 comes up, but the main thing with third 0 coming up is that you can just almost invariably shuffle back 0 with Limnus Gate. And if you can't, you've been so interrupted that most of the time it wouldn't matter anyways, and you can also just use second Kagari in order to end up getting to that Limnus Gate anyways. Or like Shizuku. Like, I did not really miss the third one, but I had games where I was like, oh, I feel like maybe I'll miss the third 0, or maybe I'll miss the third Kagari, but I never actually did. So I was playing cards that are like SP Little Knight and Azalea Temperance offer a different kind of benefit, which is why I was playing those. Kaina probably should have been cut from this deck. I can't remember a single time where I was even like, oh, I just needed a different attribute. This probably should be third Kagari or third 0. I'd probably lean towards third 0 so that when you go first and then they impermit and then you make a second one with like linkage, that you still have a third one in the extra deck, but it's just not a big deal. But yeah. Talking about Sky Striker cards, I am not playing real quick in the main deck. We're not playing Afterburners. I found Jamming Waves to be a lot more flexible. A bunch of monsters on the boards currently tend to hop around, like in Vanquish Soul. They're going to like pick and bounce their own card, and you can't really pop it. The advantage here, though, in the Vanquish Soul matchup, by the way, you need to get rid of the field spell. I could actually see that, where like you use this to pop a K9 card, and then pop the field spell. The Vanquish Soul field spell is just terrible. Jamming Waves also forces the trap out of Vanquish Soul, which is not irrelevant by any means. Um, eh. I do love Afterburners. It's a really fun card. I love Afterburners and I love Damning Waves. They're both great. This has been outdated for forever. I'm not gonna justify talking about that. This is a depressing card that I don't understand why it can't target the Link monster. Honestly, if it could target the Link monster, I actually think it still wouldn't be played. But I could pretend that I had a role. I don't, or a quick play. Hello, why isn't this a quick play? There's no reason for that. I still wouldn't play it as a quick play, but at least then I would see a reason for it. If you'd be like, oh yeah, sure. The field spell, I do like this. And I do think it has a place. I just don't think it's, like, good enough, right? Like, there are circumstances where you draw it and you're like, I wish this was something else that, like, actually did something and I didn't have to give up something for in order to get something out of it. I don't think it's terrible. I love the effect where it summons from deck. But like I said, I was trying to cut down as much as possible and get as consistent as possible, so this ended up coming out of the deck because of that. Cyanos, I think is an option, but like I said, I think Cyanos is the worst option into Maxi and stuff, so I cut it because of that. Rancona, I probably shouldn't be. Multi-roll, I think multi-roll's solid. In the vein of talking about where, like, I would need an opening, I think, like, Super Poly, answers that a little bit better, and you kind of just have to... Multi-roll I found to be generally too removable in, like, the current meta, where it's just not... you're just opening yourself up in a way that's, like, really inconvenient. We're playing Hornet Drones. I'm mainly playing that for consistency. Ego Booster, I think you could hypothetically play, and I think there are game states where it'd actually be really good to, like, Eagle Booster your 0 on your opponent's turn, and just be able to actually hold on to that pop indefinitely. But I've never been sold on it. I can't remember if I was trying it for a very little bit when I had the deck being super huge, but it just wasn't coming up, so I just cut it, and I've never been like, wow, I really wish I had Eagle Booster. But I do think, especially if I think if Dracotor were more popular, I would love having Eagle Booster available, because it lets you just hold on to your 0 pop until the end phase, which I think is actually really powerful in that matchup. Shark Cannon. I just feel like most of the time, if you're going first, you want to interrupt them before Shark Cannon is relevant, and if you're going second, it feels like it does too little too late most of the time. It's like... I found this card, when I am playing it, to be most useful as a Shizuku search during the end phase, and targeting like an Omni Negate or a really powerful monster follow-up. Like summoning a Baron off of this is good, but then it also conflicts with the fact that you probably have like a Widow Anchor set up or something. But depending on how bad the board breaking went, maybe that is or isn't true. But I was cutting this because it just wasn't feeling like it was doing enough, consistently enough. The Mitsurugi mixes felt like they did too much, and the part of the board that I could get rid of wasn't, like, the Mitsurugi part is the part that is continuing to be a problem at that point. And stealing Murakumo is good, but sometimes it's just not what I need. And usually it wasn't like what I was like, oh yeah, I just need to steal Murakumo. I do, like, if I was playing against Mitsurugi every time, I'd probably be playing it, but I think it tends to help mostly against pure Mitsurugi rather than the hybrids, in my experience. Mostly they're playing Mitsurugi Ryzeal, and Detonator is annoying. And doing this end phase, if they still have Detonator, is going to make you sad. But also, usually, I had a card economy problems because of how Detonator works and linkage and stuff like that. So whatever. And the fact you have to discard from Murakumo. Those boards didn't feel impossible, but there were some times where it's just like, oh, it's just a little too much. We're not playing Hamp because Lunalight's not real. And I didn't run into Lunalight. Lunalight wasn't real. I never regretted not running Hamp. Searchable Kaiju. Kind of Rick going first. Jamming Waves was my going second concession. Didn't really need anything else. We're not playing Engage 0 because you can't link it off. That's it. Sometimes this can be an interruption, a negate, a board wipe, but it's just not consistent enough, and there's only so many extra death slots. I would rather run like a Typhon, honestly, before I ran that, but I wasn't even making space for Typhon because of the Super Poly. Access code, solid, but you're just not consistently getting up to a Link 4 in this deck. So yeah. I'm not playing Thrust because I didn't want to play any traps. I was making room for the hand traps and cross out, so not doing that. Not making room for traps. And I think you kind of have to have traps. I already was having trouble like finding more room for talents, and like I said before, I have a sneaking suspicion that cutting second desires and playing second talents, cutting desires and playing second talents is probably better than this list. But I didn't do a ton of playtesting, and I was just sort of vibes-based deck building as the event went on. Okay, I have talked for way too long and probably disseminated zero useful information for anyone. But yeah. I played a bunch. I got a 3-digit place for the first time. And that's it. That's how we did. So I hope you enjoyed listening to me blather on about my deck for literally like 45 minutes. Alright. I'm gonna shut up now. Bye.